He's the #1 New York Times best-selling author of over 20 novels for young readers, including the Percy Jackson series, the Kane Chronicles, the Magnus Chase series, and the Trials of Apollo. Please give a warm hero's welcome to the man who's kept you reading way past your bedtime, demigods of all ages, Mr. Rick Riordan!
Oh my gods. Thank you so much. It's great to see my adoring audience. I've been at this for like 10, 15 years, yeah. I spent a lot of time with the Greeks, the Egyptians. I love it up north, super cold and refreshing. Great falafel, very warm and delicious. But it really all comes back to Percy Jackson. Yeah, yeah, thank you. It's funny, I had the idea when I was on a beach. I know. Yeah, a beach. How about that? It was a beach actually in Texas.
What you've just witnessed is not uncommon for authors. You see, fiction writers often get very close to their characters, sometimes so close to their characters that they begin to behave like them. In the case of Roshni, she is assuming the role of Arusha from Arusha in The End of Time. And Arusha is a liar. The kind of liar who might fool a crowd, try to convince them that she's someone she's obviously not. Now, when Rush comes to, she's going to be dazed and possibly very embarrassed. When I snap my fingers, just let her keep talking, no matter where she's gone in her lying, and then I want you to give her a huge round of applause.
And that's how I became the world's best orthopedic surgeon. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, good job, me. Yeah, that's true.
So now you've met Rush, but before we meet the rest of the Rick Riordan Presents crew, what is a demigod? We asked a lot of people this question, and they had some pretty great answers. Let's take a look.
A demigod is half human and half god.
They have traits of both someone who's mortal and someone who's not.
Some powers that demigods have are controlling elements, like Percy Jackson can do with water.
Lightning, the ability to control air.
Great archery, they can have great sword fighting.
Charm speak, like if you were an Aphrodite child.
They have the powers of their parents from their parent god side of the family.
It is very hard to be a demigod because there's a lot of monsters. If you can't fight back, then you're monster lunch.
You can be brave, you can be tough, but if you aren't loyal, there's no one you can trust and you're just gonna be alone.
And if a demigod just works by themselves, they're gonna get killed, no matter how powerful they are.
Together is always better.
Because you can't just do a quest by yourself. There are different people and there are differences.
Because you're different, you have a different perspective on the world and can bring new things to the table and maybe solve problems in a unique way.
When you're different, that could actually be a really awesome thing, and you could end up to be like a demigod who gets to kick monsters in the butt.
I feel like I have aspects of the gods in me.
Like if I found out that I was a demigod, I'd probably freak out and like, whoa, this is insane.
Whoa.
If I found out I was a demigod, I would say a lot of swearing. Bleep, 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 bleep.
I'm a demigod on a quest to become a better person in life.
I'm a demigod on a quest to survive high school.
To find something that nobody has found before.
To save the world.
To stop yelling at my brother.
I'm a demigod on a quest to grow up.
Well, what did you think? Some pretty great definitions, right? And I think the thing about the demigods is that, like all the characters we write, I mean, they have supernatural powers, but more importantly, they have some really important human natural characteristics too. So let me introduce the Riordan Presents team for you, and then we're going to talk a little bit about these and how we come into these characters and these stories. We have on my far right, Jen Cervantes, who wrote The Storm Runner. Yoon Ha Lee, author of Dragon Pearl. And Roshni Chokshi, who wrote Aru Shah and the End of Time. And if you're wondering what is the deal with Riordan Presents, what's it about? Well, basically, the idea is to find great authors and put the spotlight on them and let them tell the stories that they grew up with that mean the most to them, about cultures and mythologies and folklore that you may not hear enough about in mainstream publishing. And all three of these wonderful authors do such a great job of that I thought we could pick their brain for a few minutes and find out about their writing. First of all, let me ask you to just introduce yourself and your story that you tell just really quickly. Jen, let's start with you.
I'm Jen Cervantes. I'm here from the land of enchantment, New Mexico, and my story is about Zane Obispo, who finds himself at the center of a very dark and dangerous prophecy, and he has to go against the god of death, darkness, and destruction to save the world.
Hello, my name is Yoon Ha Lee. I wrote about Korean mythology, and I thought that the only thing better than Korean mythology was Korean mythology in space. My heroine is Min, who is a fox girl who runs away from home to find her brother who has deserted from the Space Forces, and she's convinced that he's not guilty of desertion, and she needs to find out what happened to him.
I want to be a fox. I'm Roshni. I wrote Aru Shah and the End of Time. Aru is a bit of a liar. Not like me at all in middle school. And you know, the story is inspired a lot by the Hindu mythology that my grandmother would read to me before bed a lot. So it's truly terrifying, and I wanted to share it with you so that we could all be traumatized together. And it's a story about a girl who sees a shiny lamp that says no touchy, so of course she touches it, and then unleashes a demon, and she has to go to the underworld, make a new best friend, and hopefully stop a demon from ending time itself.
Nice, very good. Wow. Just a real quick follow-up that I thought of, Jen, you mentioned the land of enchantment, and volcanoes are very important in the book. I understand you actually have dormant volcanoes there, like where you live.
Yes, yes. So as a matter of fact, we have a house that sits up on a hill and it overlooks this mesa. And on the mesa, there are dormant volcanoes, and we have some windows that frame these volcanoes very nicely. And so as an author, I thought, well, what if there was something really dark and dangerous and terrible and evil lurking inside one of these volcanoes? And so,
yeah, why wouldn't you?
There we got Apush, the Maya god of death, darkness, and destruction. Yeah.
Ooh, all right. Good thing to put in a volcano. I like it. Okay, well, as we all know, I mean, writing can be tough, and a lot of writers have had other jobs while they're waiting sort of to be able to be a full-time writer. And I'm curious, did you guys have other careers? What did you do before writing or in addition to writing? Rosh, how about you?
I worked at McDonald's, guys. Yeah, I really did. I professionally had to say, do you want fries with that? But that was fun. And then I was also very, very briefly in law school, so that was also really fun. And then I was like, I like this better.
I used to be a high school math teacher, and the students were very, very upset with me when I made them read a book. It was called Flatland by Edward Abbott, and it actually is about geometry. And then I tried to make them write a paper in math class, and they really didn't like that.
Understandable. And Jen?
I've done all sorts of things, but more recently, I taught children's literature at the university, and that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of students who would come in and say, I hate reading, I hate reading. And then by the end of the semester, after I dropped them that they would read 12 to 15 novels, they actually came back and said, we really loved these books, because kids' books are the best, right?
Fantastic. All right. Okay. Well, you talked a little bit about your main characters, and we heard from the kids on the video what they think a demigod is, a hero is. Are there certain qualities that you look for in a protagonist? What do you think is important to be a hero? Rosh, what do you think?
Why do you do this to me? I look for someone who's capable of empathy, truly, and a protagonist. I want someone who is not afraid to listen compassionately, even when it goes against what they think. Perhaps one wonderful thing about Hindu mythology is that sometimes the villains can be really, really heroic, and the heroes can do truly villainous things. And for me, when I was writing Aru, I didn't want her to be blind to that. I wanted her to look at those nuances, and I wanted her to think of heroism on a case-by-case basis.
That's great. I love that. Yeah. You?
I actually take the opposite approach. I want my protagonist to be severely flawed, because if they're already good at the beginning, then they have nowhere to grow. So they have to have a flaw so that they can overcome the flaw and become that better person over the course of a book. And my heroine, Min, is very flawed. She too is a liar. She lies to get her way out of trouble. And as I also discovered in middle school, this is maybe not the best life choice.
Jen, what do you think?
So they stole my answers, but I will add to that. I have always been a sucker for the underdog. And so give me a movie, give me a book about the underdog, the person who cannot possibly rise up against all of the impossible odds, and they somehow come out of it. And so I really love writing underdog stories. And I think, too, this sense of loyalty. Loyalty is really important to me and in my friendships and in my family. And so I want the characters in my book to feel that sense of loyalty to each other, because they're often going on these death-defying quests, and so they need to be.
Yeah, important, yeah. You touched on this a little bit, Rosh. I'm going to start with you, Yoon, on this, but how about the other side of the coin, the nemesis, the villain, if you will, the person that you're up against in the book? What's important about, what do you look for in a good nemesis?
I want the nemesis to think of themselves as the hero. They have their own motivations, they have a goal, and they think that they are in the right, because otherwise they're just a cardboard villain, and that's really, really boring to read.
Yeah, yeah. How about you, Jen?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, I think that the villain has to have that backstory, and I think that they have to believe that they're the hero in their own story, and that whatever their goal is, that they need to achieve that goal by any means necessary. And I'll be honest with you, my favorite character in The Stormrunner, for those of you who've read it, well, one of my favorite characters, is the god of death, darkness, and destruction, because he is so cool. He was so much fun to write, yeah.
Totally, totally. And Marsh?
Yeah, what they said. Just like, yeah, no, that's a lot of brilliance there. No, it makes a lot of sense. And I want to be as moved by my villain as I am by my hero. And sometimes getting into their mindset, you just have to really like sink into it. I got a special villain candle. I take some BuzzFeed quizzes in my villain mind. It's fun. So
and sometimes it's not hard to get into the villain mind.
Yeah, you're like, this was too easy.
Right, right. Well, the way I think about it is that the villain and I have the same goal. We are out to make the protagonist's life miserable.
Right.
Thank you, right?
Very important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so talking about getting ready to write, how much research did you have to do on either the mythology or the folklore or other elements of the book? And how do you go about doing that research? Jen, you want to start?
So I did a lot of research. It's on Maya mythology, and the Mesoamerican mythology is vast, and it's great, and it's intense, and it's complex. And I grew up hearing a lot of these stories, but it wasn't until I did my own research. And so I read about 11 different texts. I watched some incredible documentaries on National Geographic and some other sites. And what was really astonishing to me is to learn that the Maya, when they were colonized by the Spanish, that they lost all of their records. And so it wasn't until the middle of the 20th century that that we started cobbling together all these pieces that had been burned and lost because of the Spanish invasion. And so that was really interesting to me as a writer to look at that and say, okay, what artistic license can I take, right? Because we don't have all of the facts, and their pantheon is vast and great. And just looking at the way they decoded the language and the glyphs was absolutely fascinating, and we're still working on it. So it's pretty incredible. So I did quite a bit. Wow. Yeah.
Hats off to you. You did a great job with it.
Thank you.
Ian, how about you?
I actually did a lot of reading on Wikipedia, and the reason is that I am not fluent in Korean, and so a lot of the materials are not available in English. So I would read up on things on Wikipedia, and then I would call my mom and say, hey mom, how did they dispose of dead bodies while at sea? And my mom would say, why do you always have the most morbid questions, Yoon-ha? So it was Wikipedia plus my mom.
I love it. I didn't know that was an option.
Josh?
I did research a little bit. I just, you know, the thing is, I think the most amazing thing about Hindu mythology is it's a living thing. It's inextricable from our religion, and I am a practicing Hindu. And so for me, like, it was about navigating those fine lines about which are the stories that I'm choosing to draw from. And India is huge, it's gigantic. And so you ask one person, like, how did this happen? They're like, well, don't you know, blah, blah, blah. And you ask another person, like, 2 streets down, and they're like, that myth is all wrong. And that there is no such thing as one true myth. And so for me, when I was picking the stories for the Bandava series, I was just trying to think about what's the most common denominator that appears in all of these myths, and what can I celebrate about the essential truth about all of them. So that was great. And also called my grandmother. That was really nice. Or tried to bring her here so she could feed me, because writing is sad. You get hungry.
Okay, so I imagine we have some aspiring and maybe practicing young writers out there. And so I have some questions for you about problem solving as a writer. Have you ever had a moment where you just say, this is impossible, I cannot finish this, I can't write this scene? Whatever, you're just stuck on it. And if so, how do you get past that? How do you move past that? Do you have any tricks?
Well, I think inspiration can kind of go both ways, right? So when I feel really stuck, I like to reread the books or rewatch the films that made me just feel like, wow, I've got so many stories I want to tell, and that inspire you in that way that feels like light's just bubbling up in your soul, and it's great. Other times, you read stories that you absolutely hate, and you're just like, I can't believe this was a thing. If they can do it, I can do it. And so, you know, I'd say that helps.
True. Ian, how about you?
My trick is to whine at my husband. Basically, I go up to my husband when I'm stuck and I say, Joe, my writing is brokety. You need to take me to Starbucks and fix my story. And then I tell him my story, and I tell him about the part where I'm stuck, and he'll say, well, why don't we fix it by doing X, Y, and Z? And I say, Joe, that's brilliant. And then I go and do something completely different.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I actually had a scene, and I was really happy because Rick said, I've been there, where I couldn't figure out how to get my characters out of Xibalba, which is the Maya underworld. And I got them there, and everything was going really well. And I thought, oh my God, like there's no way to get them out. I've written myself into this corner. So I asked my husband, he gave me terrible advice. And then I ate a lot of chocolate. And I called my daughters, and one of them had the answer, and so that was very, very helpful. So I actually rely on my kids a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so kind of along the same line, do you have any particular rituals around your writing, or any interesting quirks or talents that you bring to the writing process that you can share with us? I see some giggling. That's probably a good sign. What do you think? You? How about you?
I am interrupted every 15 minutes in my writing by my cat. She walks into my study and demands to be petted. So it's a built-in writing break, and it lets me pace myself. Because if I get really stuck and then I pet my cat and everything's calm and she starts to purr, and then she gets bored of me and walks off, and then I can go back to my writing with a fresh mind. I recommend a cat. Everyone should get a cat.
Yeah. Everyone should get a cat.
Rush, how about you?
Yeah, the cat helps.
The
Yeah.
cat?
No,
Okay.
I'm not even kidding. Teddy the bread cat, which is my cat, he likes to perch on my chest and just go like, meow.
Oh, okay, but I also have to ask you, I heard something about coffee grounds.
I was going to get to, I was never going to get to that.
You were never
I don't think it's a weird habit, but I get strange looks. I like the texture of coffee grinds, and I like to chew on them.
So you chew on them while you're writing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you tried it?
No.
You should.
I haven't. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's brilliant.
How about you?
Any writing talents or?
Any special talents we should know about? Quirks?
So I can read, write, and talk backwards.
Okay, I've heard you say that. Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Like anything? Forward and
Well,
backwards?
I don't know. I don't know if anything.
Wow.
Pneumano
Okay.
ultra microscopic silicovolcanoconiosis.
No scientific stuff.
Do you like do that to check your own writing? Like is
Yes.
it an editing technique?
I actually do.
Oh, wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I don't know if it's impressive. It's just a weird thing. I wonder if anybody else in the audience can do it. But
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. And you and I have to ask you one more thing. I noticed today when we were sort of practicing and hanging out, you're an artist too. You like to sketch?
I do. I go to cafes and restaurants and table readings and practice sketching people, and then they are either hugely embarrassed that I've drawn them with all their warts and things, or they like the pictures.
It is a little disconcerting when you're like in a meeting and you look up and you're just like. Okay, so again, for the young writers out there, advice for the younger you. If you could go back in time and give yourself a great piece of advice about what to do in the future as a writer, what would that be?
Read voraciously, truly. And I would also just tell yourself every single day, you are not a gallon of milk. You've got no expiration date for your stories. Give it time. And the only person that you're up against is yourself. That's all.
Well said.
I'd say push the boundaries. You know, I think sometimes we're so afraid when we sit down to write, and we're afraid of what people are gonna think, and is anyone gonna like it, and is anyone gonna read it? And I think to really push yourself out of that comfort zone and just put it on the page without judgment, I think is really critical. And again, what Raj said, I mean, just read everything and read widely.
I have a completely different piece of advice, which is to exercise. No, really, I gave myself a repetitive strain injury by typing too much, and you only get one body. You do not get a replacement body. And if writing is a physical activity, you have to type, you have to write, you have to mark up your manuscript. Take care of your body because it's the only one you get.
True that.
Good advice. Okay. Last thing I want to ask, and I just have to bring this up, Jen. I'm sorry to pick on you again, but I know that you
always
wrote,
pick on me, Rick.
I do, I'm sorry. You wrote when you were young a poem to your mother that is so beautiful. Can you share just a little bit of that for us?
Yeah, so I was about 10 when I wrote it, and she framed it, and it's still next to her bed. And I broke each stanza based on words that reminded me of my mother. And so I think the first one is love, and then guidance and patience and some others. And the first stanza, it goes something like this. Love, she has enough love to light your life, each and every part. She brightens my day and fills my heart. And so I wrote that when I was 10, and then there's, you guys don't want to hear the whole thing. And I don't even think I have it memorized, but she loves it, and it's a keepsake for her. So.
That's so sweet. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Did you do something like really terrible that you felt like you had to like apologize?
Probably. I was a horrible child, and I gave my parents gray hair.
But you're still very close with your mom, I understand.
Very close,
right?
yes.
That's fantastic. And in fact, Jen, to pick on you again, we have a little surprise for you tonight. Your mom is actually with us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer's mother, and I am so pleased to be a part of this evening's activities. By the way, Rick, I'm a huge fan. Well, here it is, the beautiful poem that Jennifer wrote me all those years ago that's been sitting on my dresser ever since. The poem was very meaningful back then, and it is still very meaningful today. So thank you, Jenny. You know, Jen, I've always tried to give you the best guidance that I could, and that's what really frightens me now. I'm not sure if I can help you this time. I mean, you and your author friends are in serious danger.
Well, this is getting dark. Does she know there's, like, kids here? What?
Five authors will convene in New York City, thinking they're the entertainment. Such a pity. Soon they'll be trapped on stage, unhost. Dios mío! They should leave by 8:30 at the most. Now they stand together on the brinko. Welcome to the prophecy of the Cinco.
Whoa, whoa. Oh, okay, I'm sorry about your mom and all, but I think I know what's going on. We've just been written into a prophecy.
The thing I don't get about the prophecy is that they mentioned 5 authors, and we're 1, 2, 3, 4?
I am worried about this host that was mentioned. The prophecy says it's going to trap us. It probably needs to feed on us so that it can keep that parasite alive. You know, yes, parasite.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right, Yoon. You're the sci-fi writer here.
Rick Riordan Presents an evening you will never forget, because it lasted forever.
Are you ready?